Welcome to it, a Monday edition. It's the beginning of the week here on the Shaggy Jenkins Show. How's it going today's show? Oh, we've got a lot to cover, including, will the real Hillary Clinton please stand up? A bunch of books and people are coming out of the woodwork as the coronation of Clinton continues to say, stop! Bump the brakes on this one. We'll get into a little bit of that. Plus, over the weekend, death of a legend. We'll talk a little bit about the life and times of one Muhammad Ali and what it meant to America as a whole. And then plus today, since it is the beginning of the week, we always do this. It is time to talk a little bit about money. Hi, before we get to that, I'm your host, Shaggy Jenkins, critical thinker, problem solver, and the guy that has a lot of questions. Today's question is, what are you doing with your money? Now, every single day, last week we did a focus on the family. Today we're going to start our financial week, talking about some Monday money stuff. This is a thing that I seem to notice more and more and more in our society, and maybe it's just a symptom of the younger generations. Maybe it's a symptom of the new predator corporate environment that we live in, or maybe it's just plain old, oops, we forgot to do it. Greater and greater numbers of youth in America have no common sense, no knowledge, or even just a basic understanding of banking or money. And so this week, when we talk about finances, I thought that we would start off with just the big money word that is starting with the same letter, M, but not a lot of people know about, and that is management. Now, for Generation X and people older than that, they probably had parents that would teach them what a checkbook was. And I know a lot of people are going, a check and a book. Do they have an app for that? Your parents taught you about the checkbooks. They taught you about this thing called the ledger that you were responsible for keeping. You never trusted the bank with that information. You never trusted the bank's math on that information. No, you always kept your own ledger and stuff like that, and that was done at the time of each individual purchase, and that was a part of how parents talk to their kids about money management. Now, even generations before that, in the 1970s and 60s, what Ma and Pa would do when it was time for junior or you know, what do you call a young miss? Mrs. Junior, Junior or Miss Junior, when it came time for them to get their first bank account, the parents would take them down to the bank. And then, of course, you would have a friendly banker that would come out of their office and say, well, this is a checkbook, and this is what a bank does, and this is where you put your money, and this is how you manage money. And the banks themselves were involved with the parents, helping the kids learn about money management. Where are we in 2016 with that? Well, let's go ahead and start off with our culture of corporate distrust. We don't trust the banks anymore. However, we don't keep our own ledgers. But there's a lot of mistrust there. So parents are like, oh, on bigger and bigger numbers, oh, just don't ever put your money in a bank. No, just tuck your money up under a mattress. You don't need that. Don't ever buy anything on credit, and don't. Oh God, it's become almost and it's only along socioeconomic lines. And of course, speak about the people that we call in this country poor. Poor people are taught in ever increasing numbers, don't use credit, don't trust banks, don't take loans out and things like that. Richer and richer people are engaging in, debt buying games. If you watched any of the weekend's coverage, last week tonight, John Oliver on HBO did a huge piece on debt buying in the United States. That's a reality for people in a completely different tax bracket than me. But With all of these levels of financial difference that exist in the United States, financial literacy as a whole has not been really maintained in our culture. And what it's led to, if you watched the report that I mentioned, and I know it's weird talking about a comedy show doing a report, but that's the country we live in. You get more accurate reporting off of comedy shows than you do the actual shows that purport to be about news. But one of the things that you learned on this comedy show, this news report, was that Americans are some $12 trillion in debt. That's a lot of money. A lot. Now, how did we get to that debt? A lot of it has to do with not knowing what debt is. How does credit work? What is an interest rate? How is it that you can go to a bank and say, I am a decent person and I have a piece of paper that says I'm a decent person, that piece of paper called a credit report. Will you give me money on the valuation of me being a decent person, at least according to this report? A lot of people don't understand that that's essentially what credit is at the end of the day, a piece of paper that says you're a decent person, so therefore loan me some money. Now, you'll get some interest back for loaning me some money. That interest is an amount of money that you pay per dollar over. So let's say if you had a loan for $100 and you had a 25% interest, you would pay back $125, right? And I know some older members of the audience are listening and going, yeah, of course. Everybody else was going, what? Because financial literacy in the United States has taken a huge slide in the last couple of decades. Now, I don't say that just as a person that helped author a book about financial literacy. I say this as an adult with a child that now I have to look at and say, you're getting to that age where I need to start talking to you about what money is, where does it come from, and where does it go. If you're going to be anything like your daddy, you'll want it to go to other places besides bills. But how do we teach financial management in the house? How do we get past our weird sort of biases about the financial workings of America's capitalistic machine? How do we get past all of that to get some sort of solid foundational education to our youth about how finances work? It's simple. Work with what you got. Now, that's something that a lot of people are like, duh. I know that, Shaggy, work with what you got. But hear me out. Instead of starting big, because I know in this segment I've already mentioned credit and banking and blah, 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 interest rates. But instead of starting big, it's time that parents, on a daily basis, start small. It's something that the mothers and fathers of olden households used to do that we don't do anymore with our kids. We include them in discussions of our budget. Of X amount money coming in from mommy and daddy's jobs, equaling out sometime after Y groceries and Z miscellaneous expenses and stuff, to this is what we have either left over, or if you're smart, this is what we have left over after paying not only our bills, but ourselves. Because part of the financial education that you need to start teaching kids in more and more numbers, and this is why we have people living paycheck to paycheck in ever-increasing numbers, is because nobody knows that you're supposed to pay yourself after the job pays you. Now, in certain theological followings across the United States, it is very easy to know about tithing as saying like a percentage of your earnings go towards a cause. You need to consider your life as a cause worthy of investing in. And parents need to start by talking to their kids about what is the amount of money mom and dad make. And after mom and dad make that money, how do they plan to spend it so that everybody in the house keeps a roof over their head, keeps food in their bellies, and keeps functioning as a family unit is supposed to function. We've stopped having those conversations with our kids because we're always thinking of some sort of sheltering type of, oh, they don't need to worry about that. Oh, they don't need to worry about that. The problem is that we don't let the kids even think about it. We don't educate them about it. We don't let them, quote unquote, worry about it until it's too late. And they find themselves in their own financial dire straits. Then all of a sudden, they've either got to dig themselves out of some massive debt, usually student debt right after college, which could take them decades to clean up. Some sort of overspending credit card debt, not knowing how credit cards function. And they've dug themselves into a big hole that now they have to kind of adult their way out of. We've entrusted the mentality of someone else will do it for me to the point that now in this country, our kids are getting out of the household without basic financial literacy. And if we're going to do anything to kind of improve the American situation right now, one of the things that we can do is start to manage the money that we have. Now, I could go into tons and tons of things, and I probably will after the break, of all the factors that try to get you to lose money in the world. But before you even talk about those concepts, parents, I don't care how old your kid is, if they can have a conversation of, hey, I want that, will you buy it for me? Now is the time to talk to them about how much you make and how much you have for X amount of gimme kind of purchases. It's time your kids understand that mom and dad have this thing called a salary, and that's only the amount of money they have. And they have obligations to other people for that money, and those are called bills, and they have to pay those. And also put something back for savings, and then, handle any emergencies that may come up. We're not having enough conversations with our kids right now about what it is we do with our money. So by the time they're getting into the adult world, they have no idea how to manage their own. And whereas in previous generations, banks and parents and communities would come together to teach kids things about financial literacy, that doesn't happen anymore. So it's time for us to take responsibility for our kids once again when it comes to managing their money. Now, in just a sec, I want to give you a reason why people are losing money in ever-increasing waves. Plus, just a little bit, we'll talk about the life and death of a legend. It's the Shaggy Jenkins Show.
Dan O'Brien.
And I'm Eric Blair.
This is Danny Macias.
Listen to The Grudge Retort Tuesdays and Thursdays on KAKU 88.5 for
Unfair and Unbalanced.
Analysis of the state of America today. We're talking about what the media is afraid to share, such as conspiracies that aren't nuts, politicians who are, and the grudges people hold.
That's The Grudge Retort Tuesdays and Thursdays at 9 a.m. on 88.5 FM KAKU, the voice of Maui.
KAKU would like to thank the underwriters and sponsors that make the Voice of Maui possible. Underwriters like Awazul Wellness and Weight Loss Center, located at Wailea Gateway Center, Suite A104. From organic cold-pressed juices to state-of-the-art weight loss techniques to help you meet your fitness goals. Awazul Wellness and Weight Loss Center is proud to support Community Talk on KAKU 88.5 FM, the Voice of Maui. Please support the businesses that, through their generous donations, empower free speech in the Maui community.
Aloha, I'm David Packman, host of The David Packman Show, heard Monday through Friday on KAKU 88.5 FM at 10 a.m. Hawaii time. Analysis, commentary, interviews, and more from a perspective not offered on corporate media. The David Packman Show, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. on KAKU, the voice of Maui.
KAKU would like to thank the underwriters and sponsors that make the Voice of Maui possible. Underwriters like Realtor Jason Wolford from Hawaii Life Real Estate Brokers, serving your Maui real estate needs with refinancing or new home sales. Available at jason.hawaiilife.com or jasonwolford@hawaiilife.com. Please support the businesses that, through their generous donations, empower free speech in the Maui community. 88.5 FM, the voice of Maui. You're listening to the Shaggy Jenkins Show. Welcome back to it. I'm your host, Shaggy Jenkins. In our last segment, we talked a little bit about how it's time to bring up financial literacy, money management to our kids. And in kind of a double segment today, I'm going to tell you of how your kids lose money the fastest, including yourselves, okay? Now, let's start off with a little bit of pop culture history, because for some strange reason, just like the old song says, a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. In this case, we're going to use a spoonful of Star Wars to help the medicine of money management go down. I know you're thinking, how are you going to connect Star Wars, which has these things called Ewoks, to financial literacy, Wall Street, and how I can save a buck? Oh boy, wait till you hear this. All right, let's start off with one of the most popular things of Star Wars, Jar Jar Binks. No, I'm kidding. Let's start off with the Force, shall we? One of the things that makes guys like me, and probably guys and gals like you that are fans of the franchise, one of the things that makes us rabid with joy is watching somebody use the Force. You know what I'm talking about, the little wave of a hand, a little, these are not the droids you're looking for, and all of a sudden, somebody finds themselves mystified by some mysterious force, almost compelled in an unnatural way to do whatever it is that you have just willed them to do. The Force is one of those things in the Star Wars film that every single one of us, the ones of us that don't secretly imagine that our bosses have upset us and we had a lightsaber right at that moment, we've all imagined that we could use the Force and would use the Force. I mean, come on. Wouldn't you? But what if I told you that when it comes to your money, there's a people out there that do possess the Force? And no, they're not Jedi. As a matter of fact, they're marketers, so we could consider them Sith. And if you know anything about the mythology of Star Wars and stuff like that, that you know, there's two sides of the Force, the good side, the bad side, and good. Both can command people to do something by influence. And if the bad guys are better at it than the good guys, guess what? The good guys will follow the bad guys' lead. And that's exactly what's happened in American society. I bet you didn't think I was going to draw this connection, but marketers in ever-increasing Sith-like numbers in their own clone army invasion have figured out ways of separating you from your common sense and eventually your money. And there's a bunch of techniques that they use to do that. So today I thought I would tell you of some of these secret, dirty tricks that marketers use so that when someone tries to use the Force on you, you young Padawan, you future financial Jedi yourself, you can use your own Force back on them. So I just want to talk briefly about some of the dirty tricks that have history in psychology. Some of them even have, and this is going to sound weird, a history in bovine behavior. that marketers use to determine human sales patterns. But these are all methods that these Sith overlords of marketing use to separate you from your money, their own force. We'll start off with something called the assumptive close. Okay, now in a business deal, you have a open, which is, hi, how are you? And then you have a close, which is, you've bought my product, or you will buy my product, sign here now. If you watch any popular movies, you probably know The Legend of Gordon Gekko and coffees for closers and all that mentality that we always seem to permeate out there about the sales culture. Well, it's very true. And one of the techniques that they use with highly effective numbers is the assumptive close. Now, what this is it's basically a way of wording things that assumes you, gentle customer, actually want to buy the product. Okay? So if I came up to you and I said, Shaggy Jenkins, I'm selling skunk repellent, and you live in a place like Maui, you're gonna laugh at me because there's no skunks in Maui. There's hippies, but no skunks. But if I come up to you with the mentality of, so, how many of these bottles did you want to buy? This is a sales technique that, and I know it sounds stupid in my example, but this is a sales technique that sales and marketing people have used time and time again to get you to buy stuff you usually would not buy by phrasing all of their language towards you in a way that assumes you have already made the decision to buy the product. It could even be something as, would you like the standard package or the adult package? What is the adult package there? Must be a Time Warner thing. But you get the example. I never said, would you like to buy service from me? I just said, what tier of service you would like to buy in at. I have assumed that you are already wanting my product, and all of my language, now that I am using it towards you in this assumptive tone, is going to make you, on a small level, assume that you already agreed to buy the product too, and then you go through the sales product and boom, close it. That's called the assumptive close. And that one is used very, very effectively. Essentially, at the end of the day, assumptive close gives you only two yes options to choose from versus a yes or no option to choose from. And it's been shown that with certain variations and stuff like that, the assumptive close leads to a higher close ratio. Now, what would you say, and remember I said that certain marketing techniques are based on bovine activity, bovine being cows congregating together in herds. Well, humans think in a herd mentality too, and marketers caught on to that a number of years ago. Where they say this is like, how do I say this? The can't be wrong crowd. Marketers learned a long time ago that people won't make a decision unless it's assumed other people in their similar situation have made that decision as well. And to that end, marketing people started putting up little phrases in our advertising and marketing language that assumes other people, just like us, have already made that choice, therefore we should make it too. So when you know that somebody's kind of unsure of what to do, and you've probably seen this from time to time, somebody will lean over, and even right now in the political season, they'll be trying to have these long discourses, and you'll hear a politician or you'll hear a marketer or a product placement guy, and they'll say, well, you know what? 1,000 people have already done this. 10,000 people said last month that they would do this. Why won't you? This is herd marketing. And what it's doing is it's implying that the larger part of the herd, which we instinctively as animals want to be a part of, the large, healthy member of the herd, not on the outside fringe where the predators can pick us off. We assume that because all these people have made this choices, that it is, to us, beneficial for our own well-being, and we make that decision as well. Herd marketing assumes that by saying a large amount of people have already done this, then the stragglers, the ones on the outside of that herd, will come back into the fold. Now, they also did this with the thousands of people can't be wrong, and 4 out of 5 dentists choose. And you see what this language is? It's basically just saying that because X amount of people over X amount of people have done this, you should as well, which if you think about it in logical reasoning, is a crap way to make decisions. 4 out of 5 people jumped off of a bridge. What's the 5th guy? The smart one that didn't jump off the bridge. But in marketing, it's the opposite way around. Hey, 4 out of 5 people have done this. Psh, why not be an idiot like them? And that kind of language actually helps to generate tons and tons and tons of sales. Now, you notice that these first methods I've talked about has assumed a yes from you or has built up an assumption of yes. What about no? Because in marketing, and if I'm a marketing guy and I'm trying to separate you from your money, there's one word that I hate, and it's the opposite of yes. It's no. But what if I told you that no is actually really beneficial to people in marketing that know how to use it? No, I know what you're thinking. Shaggy, there's no way. If I'm telling a marketer that no means no, then no means no, right? Yeah, welcome to America where consent isn't exactly that well defined. And marketing has figured out a way to make it even fuzzier by offering you the negative answer up front. It's called the BYAF theory. But you are free. And it's almost biblical in its origins because it is saying that all mankind has free will, and through this philosophy of free will that we understand, your answer could be no. But here's the little tricky psychological part of that mentality. Let's say if I wanted to ask you a question, and I thought really hard about how I want to ask you this question. Let's say I'm one of those survey people in a mall, right? And I've got my little clipboard and I see you, average shopper, getting ready to walk by, and I'm going to walk up to you with that clipboard. Now, I'm not going to use any of the other methods I talked about. I'm not going to use the assumptive close. I'm not going to use the herd mentality. Hey, so many people have already taken this survey before. I'm going to walk up to you and I'm going to say something along the lines, and you've probably heard this exact language. Hey, do you have a couple of moments to answer some questions? I understand if you say no. You know what I've just done there in your mind? I've empowered you to say no, but at that same time of giving you the empowerment to say no, I have almost subjectively obligated you to say yes. Because all human beings have this constant fight inside of us between good and evil. Evil being things in the negative, good being things in the positives. Yes, I can give my time and my knowledge freely, or no, I can be a selfish bastard and go about my selfish little self-centered existence. You see? Because I gave you the option of saying no, I set off a debate in your head between right and wrong, good and evil. What kind of person are you? And that means that in overwhelming numbers, by telling you to say no up front, I'm going to get more and more and more of a yes answer from you. And this is one of the sneakiest techniques known in marketing. It's the BYAF technique. And if you ever got any time to, you ever got any time to see if this works? Single gentlemen and ladies, the next time that you are out commingling, let's say you haven't had so good of a track record of getting somebody to, at least conversate with you. Why don't you try some of these marketing techniques? Go up to a person and use the assumptive close, okay? That would be a guy approaching a girl at a bar and saying, so, will you be having the martini or the cosmopolitan? You didn't give her an option of telling you no. See which one she says. Now, the second one is like, hey, this one will not work, by the way. If you're single, do not try herd marketing with being single. It does not work. You don't go up to somebody and say, hey, can I get you a drink? I've already bought 15 other people a drink tonight. That just paints yourself as a very creepy stalker. Don't do that. It's very bad for you and your reputation. But this method, the last one that I covered, the BYAF, but you are free. I guarantee you, if you try this out, the next time that you're trying to meet somebody, the next time that you're trying to get a drink with somebody, the next time that you're trying to get in with somebody, I'm going to say is going to put you on that path to those Jedi mind tricks that we talked about at the beginning of this segment. Go up and say, would you like something to drink? You can always say no, but I'm buying. And see what happens. Because you've empowered them to say no. And at that point, you've set off that debate. Oh, God. I could say no. I actually want to say no. But by saying no, it makes me a bad person. So now, I got to say yes because I want to be a good person. Yes, yes, yes. And they got you. Or should I say you got them? Something to think about, though, because when we talk about finances this week, and I'll go through a couple of more of these dirty tricks of the marketing individuals out there that are trying to separate you from common sense and eventually your money. These three methods today, though, if you've heard them and if you've studied them, they'll never be used on you again, and you've developed your own Jedi mind powers. Coming back! Will the real Hillary Clinton please stand up? It's the Shaggy Jenkins Show.
This is 60 Second Civics from the Center for Civic Education. I'm Mark Gage. Article 3 of the Constitution created only the outline of a national judiciary, leaving Congress to fill in the details. Congress adopted the Judiciary Act of 1789. The Judiciary Act provided for a Supreme Court consisting of a Chief Justice and 5 Associate Justices. It created 13 federal district trial courts and judgeships. The Judiciary Act also created 3 federal circuit appellate courts, staffed by 2 Supreme Court justices and a district court judge who traveled throughout the country hearing appeals. It also spelled out the jurisdiction of the lower federal courts. The Judiciary Act defined the appellate jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. It also gave the Supreme Court original jurisdiction over cases in which parties requested a writ of mandamus, a directive from the court compelling government officers to perform a particular act or acts. That's all for today's episode. Music by Cheryl Engelhardt is provided by musicalley.com. 60 Second Civics, where civic engagement only takes a minute.
Would like to thank the underwriters and sponsors that make the Voice of Maui possible. Underwriters like Realtor Jason Wolford from Hawaii Life Real Estate Brokers, serving your Maui real estate needs with refinancing or new home sales. Available at jason.hawaiilife.com or jasonwolford@hawaiilife.com. Please support the businesses that, through their generous donations, empower free speech in the Maui community.
Preparing.
88.5 FM, the Voice of Maui. It's the Shaggy Jenkins Show. Welcome back to it. Oh, God, I hope you're having a good time with us. Remember, if you'd like to drop me an email or something like that, it's easy. Shaggy Jenkins, SHAGGYJENKINS, at Gmail. I'm not spelling Gmail. At gmail.com. You can also tweet me at Shaggy Live or Facebook or all of those other places, okay? All right. And if you're interested in sponsoring the show, let me know. ShaggyJenkins@gmail.com. Let's talk a little bit about our political future. It's bleak. End of show. No, I'm kidding. It is bleak and it's terrible right now, but let's talk about what makes it terrible. Those are the candidates running. Now, there's a lot of buzz around here at the office and stuff, people behind the scenes, always trying to be like, oh, Shaggy, did you hear the latest on Clinton's investigations? Did you hear the latest on Clinton's investigations? This email thing. Oh, and they're salivating, waiting for the downfall of Hillary Clinton over this investigation. The problem with that investigation, and I hate to tell you this, is you know that guy, what's his name? Chavez? He's the famous senator that did the X graph in front of Planned Parenthood that turned out to be nothing but propaganda. Well, he's actually responded to what's happening with the FBI investigation over Hillary Clinton's big email scandal. Here's where they stand, at least his committee. And now remember, his committee is the one that would actually have to go through and do the processing of the FBI indictment of Hillary Clinton. Now, Chavez has said, and we know how politically charged right now the atmosphere is in this country between the right and the left. Well, he is saying, and he's a member of the right, he says if the FBI doesn't push forward their own indictment of Hillary Clinton over this scandal, that he's not going to second guess the FBI director. And the FBI director, it's Comey, C-O-M-E-Y, I think it's Comey, but he's apparently, according to Chavez, he's got his finger on the pulse, and if he says we need to go to indictment, we go. And if not, I'm not inclined to countermand him. And that is kind of a big deal. Because a lot of people out there are secretly hoping for, and this is sad because a long time ago there was a book written by Sun Tzu called The Art of War that said in it, everybody secretly longs for the downfall of the emperor. That's kind of what's happening with the Hillary Clinton story right now. Is everybody is secretly right now salivating over Hillary Clinton's chances of this indictment taking her out of the political race. Now, let's just go ahead and realistically look at the former Secretary of State who has close ties to the Department of Justice and the Department of State, or the State Department. Let's look at the chances of her own people, some that might still be recruited in there from the time that she was in office, her own people coming after her. You realize that this is the problem in this country. It's why we can't have police investigate other police. We can't have government investigate other government, because overwhelmingly they're going to be like, yeah, you screwed up, but we'll clean it up for you. You just go on there and do you, and we'll take care of this mess for you. And that's led a lot of people to question, because of the whole atmosphere around what could happen with this indictment, who is the real Hillary Clinton? Is she a criminal or a candidate? Is she absolutely brainless, or is she a very intellectual stateswoman? The problem is that nobody's getting any definitive answers right now, especially from the person that they should be coming from, which is Hillary Clinton herself. She had a Meet the Press this weekend where, and this is one of those things that we're going to talk about in our financial segments this week, how you change language so that you're not necessarily denying or affirming what someone's asking you. Hillary Clinton has been playing this verbal rigmarole with the press, not answering their questions by changing the actual phrase of the question. Not too long ago, if I'm not mistaken, David Cameron did this same thing with the whole Panama Papers scandal, where he came out in a speech and says, I own nothing, I own nothing, I own nothing. That means that at that time, if you're a language person, and you know verb tenses, those are very easy. Most fifth graders know them. You know that I own is a present tense, and that turned out to be correct. However, if he says, I had never owned, he would have been a damned liar, because in fact, turns out he did own in the past some of these offshore holdings that were very shady at best and downright questionable at least. Cameron had a hand in that, and he used the sophistication of language to avoid that question. Hillary is finding herself doing that a lot lately. As a matter of fact, there is a whole rundown, not only of the whole Stephanopoulos thing, where she deliberately avoided a question about the FBI. Hillary Clinton, have you been in touch with the FBI? Well, no one has asked me to come down to the office, and I haven't shown up at the office because nobody has asked me to come down there. That's not answering the question. Because during an investigation of this scale and of this nature, where not only are you a person being investigated, but all your underlings and their connections being investigated as well, you would think that the investigating office would at least reach out from time to time and be like, hey, still looking at you, kiddo. So by him posing the question, has the FBI been in contact with you? And she saying, nobody's asked me to come down. That's like me asking one of my interns or one of my coworkers out here, like the guys that are coming up next, you know, hey, Tony, you want some ice cream? And he says, burgers are very good on Tuesdays. Well, you didn't answer my question. And that's what Hillary's been doing a lot lately. And people are starting to scratch their heads and go, who is this? Who is this? Now, it just so happens to turn out that one Secret Service agent has been making the book rounds lately again. His name is Gary Byrne, talking about who he thinks Hillary Clinton is. And a little bit of background on him. He's like a 29-year veteran in Secret Service, Armed Forces, things like that. Served on the Secret Service White House staff during Bill Clinton's presidential administration. And some of the things that he alleges in the book paints Hillary in a very unstateswoman-like light. Some of the things that he refers to in the book is violent confrontations between Hillary and staffers, a huge culture of distrust between Clinton, the Clinton household, and Clinton, the White household. Secret Service agencies, porters, house staff, valets, all the Clintons did not trust any of their workers. As a matter of fact, Hillary Clinton made it her life's mission while she was in the White House to kind of get around through either subterfuge or just sneaky, get around the Secret Service. A couple of times, even losing her security detail. Now, I know that seems kind of cute and funny when you think about, yeah, I would get tired of 6 guys walking around with me all the time. And if you're not sick of that, then hey, congratulations, you have a career in hip-hop coming up. But I know that there's the cutesy side of the story. Oh, Hillary just wanted to be alone and all of this stuff. But what Gary Byrne is saying is that by nature, the Clintons do not like the Secret Service and they treated them bad. And also, Hillary had a very explosive and violent confrontation with Bill Clinton ahead of a huge national address. They were actually contingency plans among the Secret Service of how to keep Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton separate in the White House so there wouldn't be violent outbreaks, screaming, physical violence, or otherwise. And Gary concludes through all of this that Hillary Clinton is unfit for the office of presidency because she doesn't have the right temperament to the job. Now, I could flip side that coin and say, well, think about it. Your husband, who you hardly see, has just been nationally outed having an affair with a woman that was working around you and your husband. I could see that there would be a little bit of animosity there. But according to Gary, in his book, this culture of Mrs. Clinton not liking the Secret Service and not liking people around her and kind of judging them on the Clinton point system between 1 and 7 all the time, almost dictator-like control of the people that were in her orbit. Gary says that kind of thing to him just did not rub him or the other Secret Service staff the right way. So a couple of them got together and said, yeah, maybe she shouldn't be the next president. But we have this story behind the scenes, and we've always had since, 1994, 1993, of this Clinton that is not in the public eye, of the shrill, reactionary, violent, paranoid Hillary Clinton. And we've had these underlying stories for years and years and years and years about that version of Hillary. And yet, when she runs for president, you notice that all of the sources, like CNN and stuff, that were close to the Clinton administration, all of a sudden, those stories start to disappear from the headlines. Now, as long as she was Secretary of State or she was just an unattached senator, it was okay to kind of run these stories about the crazy Hillary. But as soon as she wanted to get her ducks in a row, the Clinton point system came back. The pressure on the media to be friendly and show her in a more positive light came back forward. The campaign started absolutely just saying, oh, Hillary is the every woman. She carries hot sauce in her purse, for Christ's sakes. And they tried to paint up this very pleasant kind of maternal statesman, very well versed in world affairs politician. But what we look at behind the scenes and we see the story of Hillary behind the scenes, it is a person with a short temper, of paranoia, of a self-serving kind of interest that makes it very hard to do business with her. And is that the chief statesman that you want for the United States? Now, I know there's a lot of people out there that are so hopeful, they're thinking, gosh, why won't Hillary just get indicted already and make way for Bernie? Remember what I said. Government will protect its own interest. And like her or hate her, Hillary Clinton is a part of that inner circle. At the end of the day, I'm going to go ahead and say this prediction on the show. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm calling it. Hillary will never be indicted. However, should Hillary be elected? It depends on which Hillary you're voting for. So I have to ask, if you are a Hillary Clinton supporter, who is the real Hillary Clinton? Could she please stand up? We'll be back with the life and death of a legend. It's the Shaggy Jenkins Show.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Christopher Intagliata. Got a minute? The global population is now nearly 7.5 billion. And that's just humans, because our planet's also home to 1.5 billion cows, another billion sheep, and a billion goats. Their combined belches account for a full fifth of the world's methane emissions. And methane's about 30 times more potent at trapping heat than CO2. But those methane emissions might get cut by feeding the grazers something called 3-nitrooxypropanol.
And I can tell you they like it. No rejection at all.
Mike Kinderman, an organic chemist at DSM Nutritional Products in Switzerland. Liking it in the cow world, he says, basically means they'll still gobble up their food, even with this stuff mixed in. Kinderman's company developed the additive a few years back. It jams up an enzyme crucial to the production of methane by microbes that live inside the animals. And it only targets those methane-belching microbes, while leaving the rest of the microbiome untouched. The result? A 30% decrease in methane emissions. The study is in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. Kinderman says he thinks the compound could be a win-win for the planet and the animals.
The methane is kind of a waste product, and this energy, instead of losing it for the animal, it can be reused for the animal in terms of performance, and at the same time we are doing something for the greenhouse gas emission and climate change.
The product's not on the market yet. Toxicology tests are ongoing, but the hope is that it might take some of the heat off of beef. Thanks for the minute. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Christopher Intagliata.
It's the Shaggy Jenkins Show, 88.5 FM, voice of Maui. Welcome back. Let's talk a little bit before we're done for our day. Let's get this out of the way. Over the weekend, one of the most controversial figures in sports passed away. And when I talk about controversy, I mean controversy that is true controversy. Okay? With modern athletes today, we have things like steroid use. We have Johnny Manziel and his hell of a bender that he's going on. But that's not really controversy so much as it's just people's lives unraveling in front of a viewing audience. When we talk about controversy, the stuff that really creates kind of social change, one athlete embodied controversy. And I know that that's kind of a powerful thing to say about Mr. Float Like a Butterfly, Sting Like a Bee, Muhammad Ali. But it is the closest statement to the reality of that man's life that you'll ever meet. He embraced controversy, not because he just wanted to be one of those guys that was out there and making noise so that people would notice him. You know that kind of goes on with guys like Conor McGregor and all the UFC guys. They deliberately kind of blow up a lot of stuff so people will look at them and the press will cover their shenanigans. Muhammad Ali wasn't that. But when he dove into social injustices and social issues, he dove into them wholeheartedly. And I know a lot of people are mourning the passing of Muhammad Ali as a sports figure, as one of the greatest boxers of all time, of a man that was suspended for 3.5 years from boxing professionally and then came back at the cost of his own long-term health and recaptured the championship. The younger Muhammad Ali was known for his lightning-fast moves and improvisation with his fast handwork. The older Ali, once he came back after the suspension, was known more along the lines of a human battering ram who used kind of a rope-a-dope scheme of just sitting there and letting people pound on him until they got tired. And if you don't believe me, ask George Foreman, because that's how he was defeated by Muhammad Ali. He literally tired himself out. But I don't want to talk about the sports figure of Muhammad Ali. I want to talk about the man. Because even in his eyes, boxing was secondary to his life. And he used to tell people, I'm paraphrasing here, but boxing introduced me to the world, but I'm not about it. And that's a powerful statement when you think about all the stuff that he used his boxing fame to accomplish. He was on humanitarian missions to Asia, Africa, and Cuba over the course of his life, even coming into potential trouble with the United States State Department over some of his humanitarian efforts. And you could say that this lifetime of him trying to correct social injustice was him trying to correct his own social injustice. Because to understand the life of Muhammad Ali, you have to understand the thing that made him controversial in the first part. He objected to being drafted into war. Back in Vietnam, Cassius Clay went in front, after his joining the Nation of Islam and becoming Muhammad Ali, going to court and saying, I refuse to serve in the army because, quote, I ain't got no quarrel with them Viet Cong. And a lot of people would be like, oh, God, he was a draft dodger. No. A dodger is somebody that uses some sort of subterfuge method of getting out. They'll go to the National Reserves. They'll go to Canada. They'll go to college on an intellectual pass or something like that. This was not dodging. This was confronting the draft. And in that confrontation, in a court of law, Muhammad Ali says, I don't want to fight because I ain't got no quarrel with them Viet Cong. That's not draft dodging at all. As a matter of fact, that's what led to him being considered one of the most hated figures in boxing in the early 1970s, being ousted from the world of boxing. He couldn't get a license to box for 30-something years. At the height of his career, it was ended because he wanted to take a stand for something that he believed in, to the point that it almost cost him everything. But when 3 years later he was allowed to box again and he entered the ring, he started using those winnings to build a lifetime of humanitarian and social injustice awareness programs, even going as far as establishing its own trust and its own award for humanitarianism. So when we think back on the life of Muhammad Ali, don't think of him as the sports figure. Think of him as the polarizing figure that he really was, somebody that said, hey, something ain't right. And no matter who we are, we need to balance those scales. That's how to live like a champion. We'll see you tomorrow.